Create and modify corridors, Part 1. After completing this video, you will be able to create a corridor, add multiple baselines to a corridor, split and merge corridor regions. Before you can create corridors in your model, you need three things. First, the alignment. Second, the profile. And third, a typical cross-section of your road. And in fact, I have several cross-sections for my road, one for the primary road and another that goes all the way across for a secondary road. And then I have some for my curb returns, where I'll use these curb return assemblies to stretch the pavement towards the center line around the intersection curbs. Let's actually see how this is done. To create a corridor, you'll go to the Home tab, Create Design Panel, Expand Corridor, and select Corridor. In the dialog box that appears, you'll give it a name. I like to keep my name the same as the alignment I'm using. Then I'll select the alignment, and immediately it recognizes that there's a number of profiles associated with that alignment, so I need to select which one I want it to pull vertical information from. I'll choose the Newcastle Road Profile Layout and press Enter. You can see it gave it an alignment name and a profile name, and the last thing I need to do is set the assembly that I want to use. So I'll use my down arrow to select from the list, or I could have selected it from the drawing using the green box. Since Newcastle Road is my primary road, I'll use the full section. The corridor style is going to be a basic style. I do like to use my all codes with hatching, and for the daylights that are associated with that assembly, I'll need to set the target surface that it needs to daylight to. I could tell it to set the baseline and region parameters right away, but I'm going to uncheck mark that and set them separately. Now I'll click OK. I see that I have a warning. It's basically saying there's no intersection found for the daylight, and I can see it's happening in this area where I don't have daylight to the side of the road. I'm going to ignore that error for now. When I look in closer at my corridor, you'll notice that I have hatching because I turned those all codes with hatching turned on. And I have another alignment that I need to add to my corridor. I'll do this with a baseline, or I can do it with an intersection. To do it with the intersection, I would need to cut back my corridor in this section and add an intersection. So let's see how we do that. When I select any part of the corridor, you'll notice that the contextual ribbon appears, and I can split regions to split up what I have showing. So on the Modify Region panel, I'll click Split Region. It's going to ask me for the region to split. I'm going to select the main corridor, and I'm going to split it at this curb return, and I'll do it again to split the region, picking this corridor and splitting it at this curb return. Now I want to remove the region from the center section. To do that, I'll go to the contextual ribbon, expand the Modify Region panel, and select Delete Region. Then I'll pick the region I want to delete, and you can see it trimmed it back on both sides to that curb return that I selected. Now I'm ready to add an intersection. When I do that, it's going to add a baseline and multiple regions that will apply different assemblies to different parts of the road. On the left-hand side, I'll get a curb return going to the center line of the road. On the right-hand side, I'll have a region that stretches to both center lines around that curb, and again on this other side. Let's take a look at how this happens. Before I do that, I do need to zoom in and make sure that those roads cross each other. So those alignments need to actually touch or cross each other, and mine are crossing, I can see very clearly. Now I'll press Escape to let go of the corridor model, and on the Home tab, Create Design panel, I'll expand my intersection and create a standard intersection. It's going to ask me for the intersection point. I'm zoomed in so that I can see where those two alignments intersect. I'll click to place it, and it's asking me to select the main road alignment. So I'll select Newcastle Road as my primary alignment. Then the Create Intersection wizard is going to appear. Here I'll give it a name. I may want to call it my intersection Newcastle to New Harmony. I am going to have all my crowns maintained, but I do have the option to crown just the primary road instead. I'll click Next. This is where I can tell it what offset parameters to use. If I click on the offset parameters for the curb returns, it's going to allow me to set the lane width on each side of Newcastle Road and of New Harmony Road. So if New Harmony Road is a little bit thinner, I could type in 10 for that offset instead of 12. Once I have all my offsets set, I'll click OK, and I am going to have it create the curb return alignments for me. So I need to set those curb return parameters. I can change it to whichever quadrant I need to worry about. The southeast quadrant, I do need to have a 25-foot radius curb, as well as the southwest quadrant. But the northwest and northeast quadrants don't need a curb return, so I don't need to worry about those two. When I have the curb return settings set the way I want, I'll click OK. Next, it's going to ask me for the curb return profiles. It's going to create these profiles for me as well. So I need to set the lane slope parameters first, telling it for Newcastle Road, I want a 2% on the left side from the crown and 2% on the right side from the crown. And I want the same for New Harmony. So 2% for New Harmony and 2% for the other side of New Harmony. I'll click OK. And finally, the curb return profile parameters. It's going to basically create a profile for that curb return, and it's showing me which curb return I'm working with when I select the quadrant, so I can set the incoming length and the outgoing length, and I can set that for the right side and change it to the next quadrant and do the same thing. When I have all my profile parameters set, I'll click OK, then click Next. Since I already have a corridor that I want to add these new baselines to, I'm going to add it to an existing corridor rather than create a new one, and select the Newcastle Road corridor model. It also needs to know what surface to daylight to, so I need to make sure I have existing ground selected. And finally, it asks me for my curb return assemblies. And it gives you a sample of what the curb return should look like to help you select the correct one. Luckily, I have named all of my assemblies according to what they go to. So my curb return fillets, I'm going to select that assembly. The primary road full section is going to have a full section assembly. The primary road half section is going to get a half section assembly. When I'm done, I'll click Create Intersection, and it will create that intersection and hatch it according to the codes that are set up for the intersection. In addition, when I select that corridor model, I can go to the Modify Corridor panel and select Corridor Properties. This brings up the Corridor Properties dialog box where I can look at the parameters and see all of the additional baselines that it created. And when I click on each one, it shows me exactly where that baseline is. So this curb return was added as an alignment and a profile to the corridor model to make that intersection turn out perfectly.